One of the lesser known countries in Europe is Slovenia. You may not even be aware of its existence, and for that I blame your parents. If they didn't teach you about Slovenia, maybe they aren't fit to reproduce. In defense of your terrible parents, Slovenia only recently gained independence, after centuries of being fought over by communists, Ottoman raiders and European monarchs. Some of the biggest monuments to these power struggles are defensive buildings, specifically forts and castles. The greatest of all Slovenian castles was built at the mouth of a cave, overlooking the edge of a cliff. Just the sight of it could inspire folk tales, so it's no surprise the castle is surrounded by myths and legends. Built into the side of a 400-foot cliff, Predjama Castle was always a unique sight. When it was completed, the castle was seen as impenetrable, with its almost inaccessible position and the lack of siege technology in the 13th century. And so anyone wanting to rule Slovenia would look to take control of it. The castle was besieged multiple times as the Italians and Austrians wrestled over its ownership. The Austrians ultimately incorporated it into their empire, but that didn't mean the castle was forgotten. By the late 15th century, it was owned by a family of knights. The family was headed by Erazem Lueger, and although he was a knight, he still needed to be careful. Knights could get away with breaking a lot of laws, but they couldn't just kill whoever they wanted. Lueger found this out when he murdered the commander of the Austrian army. It's unclear why he killed the commander, but thought to have escalated from a drunken argument. Realizing he had just killed a high-ranking noble and close relative of the Austrian emperor, the knight knew he was in trouble. So he did what all of us would if we were in some kind of trouble. He ran home and hid. Luckily, he lived in Predjama Castle, which still in those days was considered impenetrable. But the emperor was set on revenge, as you'd expect from an Austrian. The one small route to the castle could easily be defended, making up for the disparity in numbers between the Austrian army and the knight. This also rendered regular siege tactics virtually useless. And so, according to legend, it was decided they would cut off supplies to the castle and starve the knight out. From here on, there are multiple versions of how following events unfolded. Most tell that they isolated the castle for over a year, but still the knight showed no sign of running low on supplies. He even threw food at them to prove he had more than enough. They couldn't work out how he still had enough food for himself and his employees. What they didn't know is he had a secret tunnel leading from the castle to a nearby village, so he would just have fresh supplies brought in from there, or so legend says. Since his death, many have searched the cave complex the castle was built into, but no secret passage leading outside has ever been found. It's possible the passage was covered up by the Austrians, in the hope locals would soon forget the whole thing. People still search the castle and surrounding areas for the tunnel. Eventually, the Austrians got sick of waiting for his seemingly infinite supplies to run out, especially since the knight allied himself with the King of Hungary. So now they were at war and had better things to do than just camp outside a castle for ages like a bunch of French. In desperation, they bribed a servant of the knight who told them about the castle's one vulnerability: its toilet. Every spot of the castle was well fortified. Cannon fire would bounce off its walls without seeming to cause any damage. But the castle's bathroom was not well fortified, and might be destroyed by cannon fire. So one day the disloyal servant lit a candle from a window of the castle. It was a signal to those outside that the knight was in the bathroom. And so while the knight was on the old Davy Jones crocker, he was shot by a cannon. That's how Slovenia's greatest folk hero is said to have died. He came to be seen as a kind of Robin Hood figure, although I'm not sure why. Robin Hood robbed from the rich and gave to the poor. That knight was just a dickhead in a castle. The castle was apparently then destroyed by the besieging army, I guess to prove a point to any other knights considering rebellion. It was rebuilt twice thanks to an earthquake ruining it, and was passed through the ownership of several Austrian noble families, until Slovenia fell under communist Yugoslavia and the government took ownership of it. They say the earthquake destroyed the secret passage used by the knight, but it trapped some who were fleeing the earthquake. They died in the tunnel, with their corpses never being found. Without a burial, their ghosts appear within the castle on dark nights, hoping to lead someone to the tunnel, so that they might be given burials and finally put to rest. But the sight of their ghosts only scare people away. Predjama Castle is now a museum, because they even found a way to make a haunted castle boring. You see, that's funny as I actually like museums. They're like strip clubs for nerds.